Bloomfield Hills, one of Southeast Michigan's most highly rated places to live. From their schools to their cost of living, be sure to stick around because I'm going to touch on the pros and cons of living in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan right now. Welcome everyone, my name is Andrew McManaman with Living in Michigan. I'm a licensed Michigan realtor and I have received so many texts, calls, and emails from people like you looking to make the move to the fine Mitten State. So sit back, relax, and let me be your go-to Michigan resource. Before I dive into the pros and cons list, I want to briefly introduce the one and only Bloomfield Hills. Bloomfield Hills has a population of over 4,000 people, spanning over 5.04 square miles. Incorporated in 1932, this fine city, despite the low population, should not be overlooked as a Southeast Michigan attraction. Starting off with the pros of living in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, the first one is very easy and pretty well known with a simple Google search: their school system. Niche.com ranks Bloomfield Hills number 2 of 619 places with the best public schools in Michigan and number 2 for suburbs with the best public schools in Michigan. The schools are so highly ranked that Cranbrook found itself in one of Eminem's rap battles in his 2002 film 8 Mile.
I know something about you. You went to Cranbrook. That's a private school.
Unfortunately, the private school doesn't help you rap against the greatest rappers of all time, but that's okay. Bloomfield Hills is known to have the largest outdoor classroom in Oakland County, and with over 128 clubs and co-curricular activities, there's no shortage of things to do at all ages of life. And what a lot of people don't know about the school district is roughly 80%, yes, 80% of the teaching staff have master's and doctoral degrees, which is nice because it's not uncommon to hear of teachers teaching a subject they didn't even go to school for, which it does make sense lately just because the demand has been so high for them. Jumping on over to the next pro, and that has to do with its location. Woodward Avenue cuts diagonally through Bloomfield Hills, offering a great commute in and out of the city. The average commute in Bloomfield Hills is about 22 minutes, where the national average falls just over 26 minutes. The city is also off-centered between Birmingham, Troy, Clawson, and West Bloomfield Township, where each community offers their own unique attractions and cultures. Pro number 3 is all about the offerings. Not only is there an extensive amount of activities for students, the city also has a diversified portfolio of things to do for everyone else. From golf, hockey, and garden tours to art museums, science institutes, and amphitheater entertainment, you will definitely not have a shortage of things to do. Last but not least, number 4, the city appeal. For those of you that have spent more than a second near the Bloomfield Hills area, you know it's quite a sight for sore eyes. The city is clean, well maintained, and above all else, the real estate itself will have you wondering what celebrity or top athlete is living there. The median household income is over $178,000, and over 92% of the population in Bloomfield Hills owns their homes, which says a lot, as most cities tend to have a 60-40 or 70-30 ratio in that category. Bloomfield Hills was blessed by world-famous architects to create such wonderful masterpieces throughout the 5 square miles of the city. Now, switching gears to the cons. Con number 1, which seems to be one of the bigger complaints about Bloomfield Hills, and that is the lack of a downtown. The city, of course, has restaurants, shops, and forms of entertainment, but in terms of walkability, the city lacks a little bit. But as I mentioned before, I live in White Lake, where there isn't much of a walkable downtown, and I am more than willing to make the 7 to 10 minute commute to Milford for that downtown atmosphere. Bloomfield Hills is the same way, but just like for me, you can drive 5-6 minutes straight down Woodward Avenue and experience the amazing downtown atmosphere in Birmingham. Con number 2, the cost of living. Just like any luxurious city across the globe, the downside tends to be the price tag. According to thebestplaces.net, Bloomfield Hills ranked on a scale of 100 as the US average at 133.3 overall. Taking a look at this table that breaks down grocery, health, housing, utilities, transportation, and miscellaneous, you can see how housing is nearly double the US average. Being ranked one of the top 5 wealthiest cities in the United States, consisting of over 1,000 households, Bloomfield Hills has over 30% of their households valued over $1 million. The median home value as of recording this video is over $677,000, just to put into perspective. Con number 3. I know I said this as a pro earlier, but when it's put into perspective with other cities, it can be a con, and that's the city offerings. Like I said, the city has a few different things you can do, but overall, the city tends to be fairly quiet, which is a pro and a con, depending on how you look at it. Aside from taking Woodward Avenue to and from where you need to be, Bloomfield Hills is oftentimes a city that gets passed through. Now to touch on a few good and bad reviews from current and past residents of Bloomfield Hills. This first review talks about the large yards, the great schools, city safety, and wishing the city would be a little more affordable and diverse. The next review focuses on how safe and friendly the community is, and even though the housing prices are high, they retain their value despite any economic fluctuation. And just to show you how true that is, this graph shows home prices in Bloomfield Hills since 2003. Despite the recession in 2007 to 2009 with the drastic high to drastic low, the home prices rose pretty incrementally. Now to the bad. This review from a current resident talks about the lack of a downtown area in terms of no sidewalks and a limited selection of restaurants. Then they go on to say how it doesn't feel like a community without having a downtown area to tie it all together, which is a fair statement. Last but not least, this reviewer, who is a current resident, had a few bad experiences with some of the residents and called the relationships they made over the last 17 years to be fake and with the wrong intentions. Unfortunately, that happens depending on what crowd you get in with. You see reviews like this for cities all over the country, and sometimes the city you grow up in doesn't always remain the one you should stay in. I had a similar feeling growing up. The community was very tight and kept their own, so I made a choice to move out of there to see what other communities had to offer. Not that it wasn't for me, I just spent my whole life in one place and I wanted to see what else was out there. And there's definitely no harm in that. Aside from the price tag of living in Bloomfield Hills, there aren't a lot of cons that would push someone away from making the move there. If you have any questions about living in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to be a local resource. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video about the pros and cons of living in Bloomfield Hills. If you got some value, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to tap the notification bell so you never miss out on an upload. Until next time.